Story 1. I've been a firefighter with the Westridge Fire Department for almost 8 years now. In this line of work, you see all kinds of human behavior during emergencies: the heroic, the panicked, and occasionally, the utterly self-absorbed. But nothing quite prepared me for what happened during the Parkview Apartments fire last month. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the call came in. A fire had broken out in the Parkview Apartments, a mid-sized complex near downtown. Initial reports suggested it started in a third-floor unit, likely from an unattended cooking fire. By the time we arrived, smoke was billowing from several windows, and residents were streaming out of the building. My team and I immediately began our standard procedures, setting up perimeters, connecting to hydrants, and preparing for entry. Captain Rodriguez was coordinating with the building manager to confirm if everyone had evacuated. That's when I first noticed her. She was standing behind the police tape, clutching her small dog and looking distraught. Nothing unusual about that. People are understandably upset when their homes are on fire. But while most residents were asking about their neighbors or if everyone had made it out safely, this woman was frantically asking anyone who would listen about her purse. "Woman, my purse. I left my purse on the kitchen counter. Someone needs to go get it right now." At first, I thought maybe she was in shock, not processing the severity of the situation. That happens sometimes. People fixate on odd things when their adrenaline is pumping. But as I moved closer to help set up the water line, I realized she was dead serious. Our department policy is clear: we don't risk lives for property. Once everyone is safe, we assess whether it's possible to retrieve critical items like medications or important documents, but only if it's safe to do so. A purse, no matter how expensive, isn't high on that priority list. Captain Rodriguez was trying to explain this to her as I approached. "Captain Rodriguez, ma'am, I understand you're worried about your belongings, but right now we need to focus on making sure everyone is out safely. We have reports of at least 2 people still unaccounted for." "Woman, but you don't understand. My purse is a limited edition Hermes. It's worth more than what your department probably makes in a month. It has all my credit cards and my mother's jewelry." "Captain Rodriguez, I'm sorry, but we can't send anyone in just for a purse right now. Once we've completed the primary search and know everyone is safe." "Woman, this is ridiculous. What do I even pay taxes for? You work for me. I demand you send someone in for my purse immediately." By this point, other evacuated residents were staring at her in disbelief. Several had lost everything they owned and were worried about their pets or neighbors. Yet here was this woman throwing a tantrum about a purse. One of my colleagues, Sarah, who was helping an elderly woman with an oxygen tank, couldn't contain herself. "Sarah, lady, there are people still in there. Your purse can be replaced." "Woman, mind your own business. You have no idea what that purse means to me." Just then, my radio crackled. 2 of our crew had located one of the missing residents, an older man who had been overcome by smoke while trying to escape. They were bringing him out now and needed medical support ready. I rushed to help prepare the area for the EMS, but the woman actually grabbed my arm as I passed. "Woman, are you going in? Get my purse. I'm in apartment 315. The kitchen counter, right by the stove." I gently removed her hand from my arm. Ma'am, we have a resident being brought out who needs medical attention. Your purse is not a priority right now." "Woman, I'll give you $500 if you get it for me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did she just try to bribe me while we were in the middle of a rescue operation? That's not how this works. Please step back behind the line and let us do our job." As I turned away, I heard her huff loudly. "Woman, I'm going to call your supervisor. This is unacceptable service." I had to get back to work, so I left her fuming behind the police tape. What I didn't realize at the time was that a local news crew had arrived and was filming live coverage of the fire. And guess who was standing right in their shot, continuing her tirade? While we were helping the elderly man who had been rescued, he was going to be okay. Thankfully, the woman had somehow ducked under the police tape and was making her way toward the building entrance. Officer Chen, one of the police officers securing the perimeter, intercepted her. Officer Chen, "Ma'am, you can't go in there. It's not safe." Woman, "I'm just getting my purse. It will only take a minute." Officer Chen, "The building is on fire. No one goes in except fire personnel." Woman, "Then tell them to get my purse. This is outrageous." By this point, a small crowd had gathered nearby, watching the exchange. The news crew had turned their camera toward the commotion, capturing everything. The reporter, sensing a story within a story, moved closer. Reporter, "Excuse me, ma'am. I couldn't help but overhear. Are you trying to go back into the burning building?" The woman, apparently not realizing she was now on live television, turned to the reporter with indignation. Woman, "Yes, these firefighters refuse to get my designer purse. It's their job to save people's property." The reporter looked stunned for a moment. Reporter, "But ma'am, they're currently rescuing people who are trapped inside. Surely a purse can wait?" Woman, "No, it can't wait. Do you know how much that purse costs? More than your camera, I bet." The live audience across the city was getting quite a show. The reporter maintained her professionalism, but you could see her struggle to keep her composure. Reporter, "So you're saying the firefighters should prioritize your purse over the safety of people still in the building?" Woman, "They have enough firefighters. They can spare one to run up to my apartment." A man standing nearby, who I later learned had just lost everything he owned in the fire, couldn't take it anymore. "Man, lady, I just watched my home of 15 years go up in flames. Everything I own is in there. My family photos, my mother's ashes, everything. And you're throwing a fit over a purse?" Woman, "It's not just a purse, it's a Hermes, and it has sentimental value." Another resident chimed in. Second resident, "My cat is still in there somewhere. Are you saying your purse is more important than living creatures?" The woman looked around, suddenly realizing she was surrounded by people who had just experienced real loss, and that her behavior was being broadcast live to thousands of viewers. Woman, "You people don't understand. That purse was a gift from my ex-husband. It's the only thing of value I got in the divorce." Rather than earning sympathy, this comment just made things worse. The crowd began to openly criticize her, some laughing in disbelief. By this time, Captain Rodriguez had come over to see what the commotion was about. He'd just overseen the rescue of the second missing resident, a young woman who had been trapped in her bathroom. "Captain Rodriguez, what's going on here?" "Officer Chen, this woman was trying to enter the building to retrieve her purse." Captain Rodriguez looked at the woman, then at the news camera, and sighed deeply. Captain Rodriguez, "Ma'am, the building is currently unsafe for entry. We've just rescued all known occupants, and now we're working to contain the fire. Once it's safe, and only if it's safe, we can see about retrieving critical items. But I have to be honest, given the extent of the fire in the third floor, there may not be much left to recover." The woman's face crumpled, but not with understanding or remorse. Instead, she raised her voice even louder. "Woman, this is why our country is going downhill. No one cares about property rights anymore. I'm going to sue the fire department and the building management." At this point, the crowd's murmurs turned to outright jeers. Someone in the back shouted, "Check her home insurance policy," which got a laugh from the crowd. The reporter, still rolling live, turned to the camera. Reporter, "Well, Mike, back to you in the studio. As you can see, emotions are running high here at the Parkview Apartments fire. While firefighters have successfully rescued all known occupants, there seems to be some disagreement about priorities during emergency situations." The camera cut away, but not before catching the woman's indignant face as she realized she'd just been humiliated on live television. The aftermath was predictable in the age of social media. By that evening, clips of the purse lady were viral online. Local meme pages had a field day. One particularly popular edit showed her face photoshopped onto the Disaster Girl meme with the caption, "But did they save my purse?" The next day, perhaps realizing how badly she'd come across, the woman issued a public apology on her social media accounts, claiming she had been overcome with stress and wasn't thinking clearly. She even announced a donation to the Fire Victims Relief Fund, though rumors circulated that her publicist had forced her hand. As for the purse, when we finally cleared the building and assessed the damage, apartment 315 had suffered extensive smoke damage but was largely intact. The kitchen counter, however, had been doused with water from the sprinklers. We found the purse soaked through and sitting in a puddle. One of the rookie firefighters brought it out in a plastic bag and handed it to the woman, who had returned to the scene the next day. She took it without a word of thanks, just a small nod, and quickly walked away. I later heard through the grapevine that she tried to claim the full value of the purse on her insurance, but the company denied her claim after seeing the news footage. Apparently, attempting to enter a burning building against official orders violated some clause in her policy. Justice, as they say, sometimes comes in unexpected forms. Or in this case, in the form of a soaking wet designer purse and a life lesson about priorities, broadcast live for the whole city to see. Story 2. I've lived in Sunnyvale Apartments with my 2 kids for almost 3 years now. It's a decent complex with reasonable rent, and the best part is the community pool. My kids Emma 8 and Ryan 10 love swimming, and I take them there almost every weekend during summer. This story happened about 2 weeks ago during a particularly hot Saturday. The pool was packed with families trying to beat the heat. My kids were having a blast, playing Marco Polo with some of the other children from the complex. They were being loud, sure they were excited and having fun, but they weren't being disruptive or dangerous, just normal kids enjoying a summer day. I was sitting at one of the poolside tables with 2 other moms, keeping an eye on our kids while chatting. That's when I first noticed her, a woman in her mid-40s with the classic speak-to-the-manager haircut, sitting alone under an umbrella, glaring at the children in the pool. She'd been there when we arrived, reading a book and sipping something from a thermos. Every time the kids would laugh or shout, she'd look up from her book with this intense scowl. After about an hour of this, she finally got up and marched over to our table. "Karen, do you have any control over your children at all?" I was startled by her hostile tone. "Me, excuse me." "Karen, your children. They're being extremely loud and disruptive. Some of us are trying to relax here." I glanced at the kids, who were still playing normally. "Me. They're just playing and having fun. That's what the pool is for." "Karen, no, the pool is for everyone, including adults who want some peace and quiet. Your children are screaming and splashing. It's completely inappropriate." One of the other moms, Jen, jumped in. "Jen, they're kids at a pool on a hot day. What do you expect?" "Karen, I expect parents to control their children. Where I come from, children are taught to be seen and not heard." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Me. Well, they're not being excessive. They're playing safely and having fun. If you want complete silence, maybe a community pool on a Saturday isn't the best place." "Karen, so you're refusing to quiet them down?" "Me. I'm not going to tell my kids they can't laugh or enjoy themselves at a pool. They're not breaking any rules." "Karen, we'll see about that." She stormed off, pulling out her phone as she walked away. I figured she was going to call the property manager to complain, which wouldn't be the first time someone had done that. The manager knew my kids and had never had an issue with them. We continued our afternoon, and about an hour later, most families were packing up to head home for lunch. My kids were getting hungry too, so I called them out of the pool. As we were drying off and gathering our things, a police car pulled into the parking lot visible from the pool area. I didn't think much of it until I saw Karen pointing in our direction and talking to an officer and another person in plain clothes. The officer and the other individual approached us as we were about to leave. "Officer, excuse me, ma'am, could we have a word with you?" My heart dropped. I had no idea what was going on. "Me. Of course, officer. Is everything okay?" "Officer, we received a call about possible child neglect at this address. I'm Officer Miller, and this is Miss Rodriguez from Child Protective Services. I was completely shocked. Me. Child neglect? What are you talking about? Miss Rodriguez, we received a report that children were being left unsupervised and were distressed, crying out repeatedly with no parental intervention. I looked over at Karen, who was watching from a distance with her arms crossed and a satisfied expression. Me. That's absolutely not true. My children have been with me the entire time. They weren't crying, they were playing and laughing with friends. All the parents here have been watching their kids. Jen and the other mom, Sarah, immediately came to my defense. Jen. Officer, I've been sitting here with her for hours. All the kids were supervised and having fun. There was no neglect whatsoever. Sarah. That woman over there has been complaining because the kids were being loud. That's it. They're just being kids. The officer looked around at the pool area, which still had a few families packing up. Officer. Ma'am, what are your children's names? I called Emma and Ryan over, who came running, still damp from the pool. Me. This is Emma and Ryan. Kids, can you tell the officer if you were having fun today? Ryan. Yeah, we were playing Marco Polo and diving for rings. Emma. And Mom let us have popsicles when we took a break. The officer smiled slightly, and Miss Rodriguez knelt down to their level. Miss Rodriguez, were you crying or upset about anything today? Both kids looked confused. Ryan, no, we were having fun. Emma, why would we be crying at the pool? Pool days are the best. Miss Rodriguez stood up and exchanged a glance with the officer. She pulled him aside for a brief conversation. Then they both walked over to Karen. I couldn't hear the entire conversation, but I could tell from Karen's body language that it wasn't going the way she expected. Her voice got louder as they spoke. Karen, but they were screaming. For hours. The parents were just sitting there ignoring it. Officer. Ma'am, from what we can see, there's no evidence of neglect or children in distress. Multiple witnesses confirm the children were simply playing and having fun. Karen. Well, they were disturbing the peace then. There are noise regulations in this community. Officer. The management has confirmed that the pool area doesn't have specific noise restrictions during daytime hours, and children are permitted to play normally. Karen. This is ridiculous. I pay rent here too. I have rights. Miss Rodriguez. Ma'am, making false reports to Child Protective Services is a serious matter. It diverts resources from genuine cases of child endangerment. Karen's face turned red. Karen, I wasn't making a false report. Those children were screaming. Officer. There's a difference between children playing loudly and children in distress. Filing false reports can result in serious consequences, including fines and potential criminal charges. That seemed to finally get through to her. Karen's expression changed from anger to concern. Karen, I was just concerned about the welfare of the children. Officer. Ma'am, based on our assessment, there's no cause for concern here. However, I am concerned about your use of emergency services to handle a noise complaint. In the future, pool noise issues should be directed to property management, not police or CPS. Miss Rodriguez handed Karen a card. Miss Rodriguez, this has information about proper channels for community disputes and also the penalties for misuse of CPS resources. I strongly suggest you review it. By this point, several neighbors had gathered to watch what was happening. Karen looked around, clearly embarrassed as she realized everyone knew what she had done. After the officer and Miss Rodriguez finished speaking with Karen, they came back to me. Officer, sorry for the inconvenience. Ma'am, you're free to go. There's clearly no issue here. Miss Rodriguez, your children seem very happy and well cared for. Enjoy the rest of your day. As we walked back to our apartment, I could see Karen quickly gathering her things, avoiding eye contact with everyone. By the time we got home, the story was already spreading through the complex group chat. Apparently, Karen had told the police and CPS that children were screaming in distress for hours with no parental supervision and that she was concerned for their safety. The best part: the property manager called me that evening to apologize for the incident and let me know that Karen had received a formal warning about misusing emergency services and making false reports against neighbors. If she did anything similar again, she would be in violation of her lease terms. I later found out from another neighbor that this wasn't Karen's first complaint about kids at the pool. She had been leaving anonymous notes with the property manager all summer, demanding adults-only hours and complaining about families taking over the community amenities. Since the incident, Karen has been noticeably absent from the pool area during peak hours. When she does show up, she keeps to herself and avoids eye contact with all the parents. My kids still play and laugh at the pool every weekend. Sometimes they might even laugh a little louder when they spot Karen hurrying past the pool gate, pretending not to notice. Story 3. I never thought I'd have my own Karen story to share, but here we are. This happened last week, and I'm still processing how someone could be so ignorant and entitled. Some background: I'm 32 years old and have ankylosing spondylitis, which is basically an inflammatory disease that causes some of my vertebrae to fuse together. On good days, I can walk normally with minimal pain. On bad days, I need my cane or sometimes even my wheelchair. I have a legitimate handicap placard for my car and everything that goes with it. Last Wednesday was a particularly rough day. I had a flare-up that made every movement painful, so I was using my cane. I had an appointment at a medical office building downtown, and I was already not in the best mood because finding parking had been a nightmare. After my appointment, I needed to use the restroom before heading home. The building has public restrooms on each floor, so I went to the one nearest the office I just left. It was one of those restrooms with multiple stalls, and I headed straight for the handicap stall since I needed the extra space and grab bars. I was just about to enter when I heard someone clear their throat loudly behind me. "Woman, excuse me, young man. That stall is for handicapped people." I turned around and saw a middle-aged woman with that classic "I want to speak to your manager" haircut, staring at me like I just kicked a puppy. Me, I know. That's why I'm using it. I gestured to my cane, thinking that would be the end of it. Boy, was I wrong. "Woman, oh please, you're way too young to need that. You probably just twisted your ankle or something. My mother is handicapped and needs that stall. You should be ashamed of yourself." I was taken aback. Did she really just gatekeep disability based on age? Me, I have ankylosing spondylitis. It's a form of inflammatory arthritis that affects my spine. Age has nothing to do with disability. The woman rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might fall out of her head. "Woman, everyone has some kind of condition these days. I see you walking just fine. You're obviously just using that cane for attention." By now, a small line was forming for the restroom, and people were starting to stare. I was in pain, embarrassed, and really just needed to use the bathroom. Me, look, I don't need to prove my disability to you. I have a legitimate medical condition, and I'm going to use this stall. I turned to enter the stall, but she actually grabbed my arm to stop me. "Woman, I'm not letting you take that stall from someone who actually needs it. My mother will be here any minute." I pulled my arm away, shocked that she'd put her hands on me. Me, don't touch me. And if your mother isn't even here yet, why are you guarding the stall? There's literally no one else here who needs it right now except me. Woman, because people like you always take advantage. My mother had to wait for 20 minutes last time because some teenager was using it to take selfies. I was losing my patience fast. Me, I'm sorry that happened to your mother, but I'm not that teenager. I have a legitimate disability, and I'm going to use this stall now. I turned away from her again and started to enter the stall, but she raised her voice even louder. "Woman, everyone look at this young man pretending to be disabled and stealing resources from people who actually need them." That was it. I'd had enough. Me, I'm not pretending anything. I have ankylosing spondylitis, which is a permanent, progressive condition. I have good days and bad days. Today is a bad day. I don't owe you my medical history, but here we are." A man who had been washing his hands turned around. "Man, lady, leave him alone. Disabilities aren't always visible, and you don't get to decide who's disabled enough to use that stall." The woman glared at him. "Woman, mind your own business. I'm just trying to protect resources for people who actually need them." The man shook his head. "Man, he has a cane. He says he has a condition. What more do you want from him?" "Woman, a real disability is obvious. Look at him. He's too young and healthy looking." By this point, a security guard had walked in, probably attracted by the raised voices. "Security guard, what's going on here?" Before I could speak, the woman jumped in. "Woman, this young man is pretending to be disabled so he can use the handicap stall. He's stealing resources from my disabled mother." The security guard looked at me, clearly taking in my cane, and a pained expression that I'm sure was on my face. "Security guard, sir, is this true?" "Me, no. I have ankylosing spondylitis. It's a form of spinal arthritis. I have a handicap placard in my car and everything." This woman decided I'm too young to be disabled and is trying to prevent me from using the restroom. The security guard turned to the woman. "Security guard, ma'am, you can't prevent people from using public facilities based on your judgment of their disability status. Not all disabilities are visible." "Woman, he's clearly faking it. Look at him. And where is his handicap placard now? He doesn't have it on him." "Me, my placard is in my car because that's where it's supposed to be. I don't carry it around with me." Security guard, "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to stop harassing this gentleman. He has the right to use any available stall in this restroom." "Woman, this is ridiculous. I'm filing a complaint against both of you." She stormed out of the restroom, and I finally got to use the handicap stall. When I came out, the security guard was waiting. "Security guard, sir, I apologize for that incident. Would you like to file a report about the harassment?" I thought about it for a moment, but decided it wasn't worth the extra time and energy. "Me, no, thank you. I just want to go home and rest." "Security guard, I understand. For what it's worth, she's been escorted out of the building. She was causing a scene in the lobby too." I thanked him and headed home, physically and emotionally drained from the whole experience. When I got home, I vented to my wife about it, and she encouraged me to share the story online to raise awareness about invisible disabilities. I posted it on a local community Facebook page, not naming the woman but describing the incident. To my surprise, several people commented that they had encountered the same woman in that building before, doing similar things. One person even said she had confronted them about using a handicapped parking space despite having a valid placard. The post went viral locally, with hundreds of shares and comments from people with invisible disabilities sharing their own experiences. The building management even reached out to me privately, apologizing for the incident and asking for more details so they could make sure their staff was properly trained to handle these situations. I never thought my bathroom break would turn into a viral moment of advocacy, but if it helps even one person understand that disabilities don't always look like they expect, then I guess something good came out of that horrible encounter. Story 4. Working at Riverside Cafe has been my main gig for almost 3 years now. It's a small, family-owned place right by the waterfront that serves incredible breakfast and lunch. We've got our regulars who come in every morning for coffee, tourists who find us on travel apps, and generally a nice crowd who appreciate good food and friendly service. Our owner, Mike, is actually one of the coolest bosses I've ever had. Unlike most restaurant owners who are rarely seen, Mike works alongside us at least 4 days a week. He'll bus tables, wash dishes, cook on the line, or work the register, whatever needs doing. He's in his early 40s, has a few tattoos, and usually wears the same black Riverside Cafe t-shirt that all the staff wear. Nothing about him screams, "I own this place," which is probably why what happened last Sunday was so hilariously awkward. It was around 11 m, that tricky period when we're serving both breakfast and lunch, and we had a full house with a short wait for tables. I was working the host stand, managing the wait list and seating people as tables opened up. Mike was helping out as a food runner and general support staff that day. That's when she walked in, a woman in her 50s with highlighted blonde hair, designer sunglasses perched on her head, and an expression that said, "I'm about to make this your problem." I'll call her Karen, of course. She marched right up to my host stand, completely ignoring the family of 4 who were in the middle of giving me their name for the wait list. "Karen, excuse me, I need a table for 2 right away. We have an appointment in 45 minutes. I politely held up a finger, asking her to wait a moment while I finished with the family. This did not go over well. "Karen, louder, did you hear me? I said we're in a hurry." I looked up, keeping my customer service smile firmly in place. "Me, I'll be with you in just 1 moment, ma'am." I quickly finished taking the family's information and told them it would be about a 20-minute wait. Then I turned to Karen, who was now tapping her foot impatiently. "Me, hi there, welcome to Riverside Cafe. We currently have about a 25-minute wait for tables. Can I take your name for the list?" "Karen, that's not going to work. We need to be seated now. We have somewhere to be in 45 minutes. I glanced at my wait list, then at the packed dining room. "Me, I'm sorry, but all our tables are currently occupied. We seat people in the order they arrive. I'd be happy to add you to the wait list, but I can't guarantee you'll be seated and served within 45 minutes. Karen's face scrunched up like I'd suggested she eat off the floor. "Karen, maybe I'm not making myself clear. We need to eat now. Can't you just squeeze us in somewhere?" "Me, unfortunately, all our tables are full. It wouldn't be fair to the other customers who are waiting. If you're in a hurry, I'd be happy to suggest some other options nearby." "Karen, cutting me off, this is ridiculous. I've been coming here for years. I know the owner personally." At this point, Mike was walking by with a tray of food. He slowed down, clearly overhearing the conversation, but continued to the table he was serving. "Me, I understand, but I still can't seat you ahead of the wait list. It's our policy." "Karen," voice rising, "well, your policy is going to cost you customers. Let me tell you something, Mike would never approve of treating loyal customers this way." I fought to keep a straight face, as Mike was now openly watching the interaction while clearing a nearby table. "Me, you know Mike?" "Karen, smugly, of course I do. Mike and I go way back. In fact, I'm going to give him a call right now and let him know how poorly you're treating his valued customers. I'm sure he'd be very interested to hear how you're turning away business." By now, several customers nearby were listening in, some looking uncomfortable, others clearly entertained by the drama. "Me, ma'am, I'm just following the procedures we have in place. Everyone gets seated in the order they arrive." Karen, pulling out her phone, will just see what Mike has to say about that. When he hears about this, you'll be lucky if you still have a job by the end of the day. That's when Mike decided to step in. He walked up to the host stand, dish towel still slung over his shoulder. "Mike, is there a problem here?" Karen, without looking up from her phone, "Yes, there's a problem. This employee is refusing to seat us even though we're in a hurry. I've been coming here for years and know the owner personally, and he would be appalled at this treatment." Mike, calmly, "Is that right? And what's the owner's name?" Karen, rolling her eyes, "Mike, of course. Mike Johnson. A small detail, our owner's last name isn't Johnson, it's Martinez." Mike, "I see. And when was the last time you spoke with Mike?" Karen, getting flustered, "That's none of your business. Just who do you think you are? Another unhelpful employee? I want to speak to a manager right now." Mike smiled and extended his hand. "Mike Martinez, owner of Riverside Cafe. I don't believe we've met before, despite our apparently going way back." The look on Karen's face was priceless. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Several nearby customers started snickering. "Karen, well, I might have been thinking of a different cafe. Mike, that seems likely. Now, as my host explained, we seat customers in the order they arrive. We're currently on a 25-minute wait. You're welcome to add your name to the list, or if you're in a hurry, I can suggest several quick service options nearby. Karen's face had turned a deep shade of red. Her companion, who had been quietly standing behind her looking mortified the entire time, finally spoke up. Karen's friend, let's just go somewhere else. We don't have time to wait. Karen seemed torn between doubling down and making a dignified exit. Eventually, self-preservation won out. Karen, huffing, well, your food isn't that good anyway. We won't be back. Mike, still smiling, that's probably for the best. Have a nice day. As they stormed out, the family who had been waiting patiently started clapping, which set off a chain reaction of applause throughout the restaurant. Mike gave a little bow, which made everyone laugh. He turned to me with a grin. Mike, in 3 years of working here, how many times have you seen me in the restaurant? Me, every day I've worked? Mike, and how many times have you seen me wearing a name tag? Me, laughing every day. He pointed to the Mike owner name tag prominently displayed on his shirt. Mike, people see what they want to see. The best part? About 20 minutes later, when the rush had died down, Mike comped a round of coffee for everyone who had been waiting, saying, "Thanks for not name-dropping the owner to get seated faster." Word of the incident spread quickly among our regular customers, and for weeks afterward, people would jokingly tell me they know Mike personally when I greeted them at the door. It became a running joke at the cafe. The irony is, if Karen had been polite and explained her time constraint, Mike probably would have found a way to accommodate her. He's good like that. But trying to throw around fake connections and threatening someone's job, that's a surefire way to find yourself eating somewhere else. Some people never learn that a little patience and basic human decency will get you a lot further than entitlement and empty threats, especially when you're threatening the owner to his face.